Susan, you want to hit record? Super.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Open Mic here on the Garden of Neuro, September 10th edition, the day before the world changed a long time ago. And we're going to do some open mics. Everyone's got their poetry together. We just had a great experience with Andrea Carter Brown and talking about her book. Lisa, I'm sorry, I'm missing the name of it.
September 12th.
September 12th, the day after. How could I forget? And I think what I got the most out of that is, the gift of it all. We all experienced this trauma, and yet the world continued on. And there has been gifts in some of this, even though I can't even begin to, pick one. So let's open it up. Does anyone have anything they want to start with? Lisa, do you have a prompt for us or anything you want to start with?
No, it's basically around the theme of remembering. We can address it to 9/11, but we can also address it to remembering or things that you think about when you think about that period of time. No, tomorrow's going to be a huge day because it's the 20th anniversary. And I think that's, it's hard to believe it's been 20 years. It's just hard to believe. But I'll be glad to start us off with a poem. It's just a short, sweet one that I wrote today. So where are we now that it's 20 years since 9/11? Post one of the worst cards dealt to America, affecting the world. But what happens in our backyard. That's it.
Beautiful. Oh, I see Jill has joined us. Jill, I hope you've brought something to the table. But in the meantime, Rena, do you have anything?
You're on mute.
Okay. I can't hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was on mute.
Oh no, and now it froze her. Why is that doing it?
So 9/11 happened. We lived on the Jersey side, but both my husband and I worked in Manhattan. I was in Midtown, and my husband was in the tower, actually, or he was destined to be in the tower. Piece. It's not a poem, but just because it's this open mic, and it's the first time I've actually started writing about my experiences on 9/11. So it's exactly what we experienced. So it was Tuesday, 9/11, and I do tear up because I'm one of the lucky ones. It was horrible. But it was Tuesday, 9/11. I was at my desk in Midtown Manhattan. It was my husband's turn to drop off our daughter at school, then pick up a package from the town post office and leave for the Windows on the World to attend a breakfast conference at 9 a.m. And the Windows on the World was a restaurant on the top floor, 106 and 107th floor of Tower 1. There was one problem though. The post office couldn't find the package. It had come from India, it said. The notice on our door, but there was no package to be found at the post office. That was strange. The supervisor fumbled and apologized to my husband as the clock ticked and he grew increasingly impatient. And finally, at 8:45, he left the post office and said he would come back later to pick up the package. Those wasted 15 to 20 minutes saved his life, and the package was never found. So he was on the ferry on the way to the tower, and as soon as he disembarked, the first plane had already hit, but he didn't know what. So he called me. I was in Midtown, and I remember looking out of my window. I was on the 14th floor of my office building. And he called me and he said that there was smoke from one of the buildings. Do you know what it's about? And I just looked back because I had a window behind my desk, and there was not even a cloud in the sky. And I just told him glibly, and I said, oh, you know, sometimes you have restaurants on the top floor of these towers and you can see the black smoke from the kitchen. It must be that. And he said, it's not. And we had those big cell phones in those days, the bigger ones. So he had carried that cell phone because whoever was going to drop off the daughter had that cell phone. We only had one for the family. And I was at my desk anyway, so I had a phone. And then, you know, he said, no, it doesn't look like a kitchen fire. It's something else. So I went on CNN.com on my computer and, you know, ABC.com. There was no news, nothing. Everything was normal. And I said, oh, no, I mean, you must be seeing things. And my husband's a very stoic guy. He doesn't talk much. I'm the one who's like very emotive. And he just hung up on me, I think upset because I wasn't taking him seriously. And that was the last time I was able to get in touch with him for over 5 hours. And then I called my sister in Houston because colleagues started coming in and they were laughing and they said, have you heard? Have you heard? And I said, that's strange. And everybody was laughing because nobody knew this was Midtown. And we hadn't really stood outside our office and looked downtown. It's a grid. Manhattan is a grid. So you can actually look right through the streets and the avenues. But we never had any reason to do that. So I had some colleagues come in and they said, have you heard they're saying 3,000 have been affected? There's the stupid Cessna that's flown into one of the buildings because we've had incidents where these smaller glider planes that, you know, you have pilots who are training and stuff, and sometimes they take off from one of the smaller airports, and one of them had actually crashed a few months ago into one of the residential tall buildings. So that was in the news, and there's always something in New York, right? And you know, it's you survive, you move on. And so they were laughing, and they said, oh, "It's crazy, you know. These people, it's a bright day, or maybe the sun, you know, got in their eyes, and they couldn't see the tower, or something like that." And they were laughing. I just felt it was a little strange because my husband had called and told me about the smoke, and I didn't think it was nothing. So I called my sister in Houston, and they're an hour behind us. So it was around 9 o'clock, I think, something like that, 9, and it was 8 a.m. in Houston. And she was very upset with me because for calling her in the morning when she was trying to get her girls to school. And I kept telling her, I said, can you turn on the TV? Because by that time, when I went on CNN.com and all, it was just blank pages. Nothing was coming up. And so that convinced me that something serious had happened. Because again, going by my husband's reaction, because he doesn't, he's not a fear monger. He doesn't go about, you know, exaggerating things. And to be so serious about this thing and hanging up on me because I was not taking it seriously. And stringing all of that together, and the websites crashing pretty much. And we're talking about 2001. So, you know, there weren't all the web farms and, you know, all the redundancies all over the world and things like that. So, you know, there's too much traffic on a website, it would crash. I turned on the TV and she just wouldn't listen. And then my brother-in-law said, you know, if she's insisting, why don't you do that? And so she turned on the TV. I didn't have a TV. I was a little junior at my place of work, so I didn't have a TV in my vicinity. And then she just said, oh my God, oh my God. And I said, what happened? She said, do you know? I said, and she asked for my husband. I said, well, he called, and that's it. I haven't been able to get back in because I think he's with me, but I was trying his number. I couldn't get it. So she said, the towers are on fire. And I said, no, it's crazy. I mean, it's Midtown. I mean, it's Manhattan. Doesn't happen here. Um, and um, and then one thing led to another. I called my mother in India, and I told her, if you don't hear from us, I think we are going to be okay. I just had to tell her something. She said, I don't know what you're talking about. It was night in India, and there was nothing on TV there, and she had no reason to follow the news or anything at that time in her time zone. And she's very aware and she's very politically active and so on and so forth. So she would have known. And she, you know, but I just told her, I said, don't worry about us. You might hear things. And then I hung up on her and we were told to leave. And then, of course, when the managers came in and the sirens were, all the police cars and the ambulances and everything. And that's when I went down, and I was in my high heels in those days. I used to wear these pencil type heels. And I had a computer, and I said, you know what? It's still a little in disbelief because these things don't happen here. I said, I'm going to take my laptop. I'm going to go down, and I'm pretty sure they'll give us a little pep talk downstairs, and then they'll tell us to come back up. But just in case I have that last email to answer or whatever, I'll have my laptop. And I work for financial services, so it was like nonstop. So I went down, and I was still in my stilettos. I lived in Jersey, so I used to walk in and I used to change the office. I didn't change when I went down. And then, of course, I mean, there was so much chaos in the lobby of the building, and all the management wanted us was to go to the ATM, which was in the basement of our building, and or leave the building. And kept trying my husband. I couldn't get him, but I was okay because I knew, knowing the kind of person he is, he will not run into trouble and create more trouble. He'll do the same thing. But I had no idea. All I knew is that I wasn't allowed to go back into the building. And then my sister was able to call me. And I wasn't able to call her, but she was able to call me. I borrowed a friend's because I didn't have my own cell phone. I borrowed a friend's. And I think I'm forgetting. Maybe I did have one of those big ones. I don't remember now. But anyway, and I gave my sister the number and I said, you call me. And I sat on, one of those luggage dollies that the hotels have, because my office was next to the Crown Plaza. So the hotels were also being evacuated. So they had one of those luggage dollies that, was just left out on the pavement. I just took my laptop and I sat because I was on high heels with a heavy laptop. In those days, they were very heavy. And I just sat and I just kept looking. And I had a colleague who was pregnant, and she lived in Westchester, so the trains were grounded, all the buses, I mean everything. And my daughter was in middle school, 5th grade, on the Jersey side. I later heard what she experienced because she did see the tower fall from the window of her school, and she knew that potentially her dad was in there because she didn't know. So there are just so many stories, but to me the memory is more positive because we made it out unscathed. There were so many little events after that. The ferry that we were in, and there was a bomb scare on that ferry. So while they were taking inventory of, people were still trying to do their jobs responsibly. They're taking inventory, and there was a bomb scare. So the moment it docked in Jersey, everybody just ran helter skelter. And we didn't even know where we were running. So again, we were separated. My husband and I managed to find each other. It was crazy. And then there was the anthrax scares just after, that we had to keep evacuating our buildings anytime there was a packet with some white powder that was delivered. There were my husband's entire office was well, they had a few different towers that the offices were, but 2 of the towers collapsed, the 7 and 1. So one thing I do remember though is that he was transfixed to the TV. I mean, I didn't know the man I'd married for a few weeks after the event because he was just a zombie. I mean, because he'd seen the bodies fall from the tower, people jumping. And I hadn't seen that because I was in Midtown, so I still didn't know the entirety and how bad it was, except the fact that I had to walk in my high heels. And I stopped complaining after a while across Manhattan to get to the point of the ferry that would take us to New Jersey, because again, like I said, somebody was doing their jobs trying to get us out because they just didn't want us in Manhattan, but get us out safely. All the tunnels were closed, all the subways were closed, everything. And we still didn't know. I mean, just to imagine that my sister in Houston probably had more news of what was going on than I did, because I was in it. So I didn't even know the scale of what had happened. I just knew it was really bad and that we had to get out of Manhattan. I didn't know that there was another one in Pentagon that crashed. I didn't know that, you know, the one in Pennsylvania, and that there might potentially be others in the sky. I didn't know anything. So we were just seeing the sea of humanity in New York, and we did see some bloodied people who were being chaperoned to the ferries before the rest of us. And I think it was the first time I did walk on the dirty streets of New York. I took off my heels because I just couldn't. I regretted that decision of not changing my shoes. But those were little, like, I mean, in the scheme of things, right? I mean, I think about it now and I said, wow, you know, I was complaining about walking in high heels. I mean, seriously. But anyway, my memory of all of that is personal, but also when the city came back, it's very positive. On Thursday, we were still, my husband was like incapacitated, not doing anything. He had no idea. He didn't even have an office to go to. And I was trying to figure out, okay, do I go back to work? And we had beepers and emails and we were trying to keep in touch. But it wasn't like now, the way you just go on Zoom and everybody just starts working and the pandemic happens. We had authenticated computers. You couldn't just log in from anywhere. There were lots of, you know, systems that had to be in place in order for us to do what we're doing today. It wasn't like that 20 years ago. And but the one thing that I was responding to, there was an outpouring of genuine relief from my family, friends all over the world, like professors who had taught us like decades ago. I mean, they found somehow, because they knew that my husband was potentially in one of the towers. We heard from people we hadn't heard in like his 40 years of life, I guess, when we heard from them. And so I was responding to them and making sure that they knew that he was okay and that we were okay, or we thought we were okay. But on Thursday, I got this message from his firm saying it was payday, because he worked for one of the financial services industries, and payday was every other Thursday. And among all the devastation, among all of the destruction, the management had figured out, they were working out for London, for all to London. They sent a message that said, and actually that one I wrote down, it said, our payroll systems have been severely impacted, but we understand you must be paid. Therefore, for those of you who do not have direct deposit, the firm will be sending your paycheck to your home address on record. This was 2 days after their entire office was decimated, all the records, all the databases. And I just said, you know, long live capitalism. It was just, I mean, just the juxtaposition of the destruction, and that there were people with that kind of presence of mind, that they figured that, you know, the employees would need to be paid, and to try to figure out how to best go about doing that when all the records had been destroyed, all their computers. And later we also heard that some of their backup computers were also in the same buildings that were destroyed. So, I mean, who were these IT people who were, right? And so back to Andrea's poem about the Senegalese and the tall, lanky, you know, ebony skinned. I mean, I know she read out a lot of, you know, the people who support the ecosystem in New York. They are just incredible. I mean, the spirit of that city is incredible. And I haven't been back to the city in about 18 months now, since the pandemic. And I actually commute between Raleigh and New Jersey now. I know, Lisa, you're in Raleigh, in the neighborhood. But yeah, so that's my daughter is there. And her daughter was born at the height of the pandemic. So, and again, going back to Andrea's, I think we're able to cope. I don't know if it's better necessarily. It's only because after going through 9/11, an experience like that, and coming out of it and seeing the spirit and seeing the city rejuvenate, seeing the Broadway theaters, you know, all the performers, you know, just bringing 300% of themselves to just entertain, to make sure that everybody else was okay. You just do it. It's just like that Nike ad. You just do it. Don't dwell, don't think. You just pick up your bags and you just go for it. And that's what we're doing again in the pandemic. And I mean, I don't even know. I have to start putting my thoughts, because I worked for Lehman Brothers when it collapsed in 2008. So I don't know if it's me. Maybe it's me. Now that I'm talking about it, maybe that's why I don't want to talk about it.
I'm so happy we just kind of let you go. What a story. This is going to be its own clip of, you have quite a story to tell. I think, you know, again, being able to hear it only affects you when it affects you, and it affected you in such profound little tiny ways. And hearing those stories really hits it home, I think, with every one of us that wasn't there. You know, wow, yeah, you have to join us more often. You have to do more of this poetry, and you have to share it more, because, you know, again, it's in the story. And I think we've all learned, I know I've learned these last couple of months with Lisa being such a, you know, the drop of the poetress here in my life, is how we express those stories can be in many different ways. And whether it's in, I loved how she had those two strips in her book formatted that way. I know, Lisa, you're not fond of all that fancy formatting stuff, but that it matters, you know, it makes a difference of how it's perceived in our brains and with our eyes, and how it affects our heart and how we read it out loud. So I hope you start sharing some poetry about it. You know, the healing, and that's, again, when we get to tell our stories, the healing part of it. So I'm going to stop there and ask, does anyone else have another poem that they would like to share?
Well, now about those strips, just got to say something about that.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't have a problem with people how they format poetry. I just don't want to do it in an anthology that way. That's
Okay. All right. So when we do individual ones, we, you know, she's just told us when we do individual ones, we can have our own funky formatting. All
You
right.
got it.
Susan, you had your hand up. Did you want to? And then Jill, I see you after that. So yeah.
So I have a writing that I did that somehow serendipitously ties into what our poet this morning shared, but I also have a poem that I newly wrote. So why don't I start with the poem, and then we can let Jill go and I can come back to the writing. So this is Memory of 9/11. Not a cloud in the sky that day. Severe clear, the pilots call it. The kind of weather makes you feel happy to be alive. The sunshine bright and warming bones. To take some time to smell the roses, to watch the bees and butterflies, to smell the clean air. And in a sudden flash, the radio, the TVs, the phones ringing, the people all stopping to look, to feel, to chat, to cry, to shake, to fall, to stop, to watch the smoke, to watch the sight, to watch a second plane hit the tower, to stop, to watch the papers fly, to watch the bodies fall, to watch the towers fall. Not a cloud in the sky until the smoke and ash filled the perfectly severe, clear blue sky. the kind of weather makes you grateful, so grateful to be alive. Thank you.
Thank you. Jill, were you ready to share?
Yes, I need to introduce this poem a bit, not because it's the title of my upcoming book, but because of its ties to 9/11. I gave this poem as a gift to a group called Delaware Boots on the Ground that was formed by Dr. Jill Biden, our current First Lady, in 2003, when the United States went to war, in part to avenge the attack on our country, on our soil, on 9/11. Delaware Boots on the Ground was a way of allowing greater access to communication in the early part of the 2000s. Now soldiers communicate directly with their cell phones to their loved ones. But at the time, establishing Delaware Boots on the Ground, having a section on there called Message from Home, this allowed the soldiers to access it and see what was going on the East Coast in their hometowns. In addition, this poem, once it was accepted as a gift by the Board of Trustees as well, Dr. Biden didn't need to vote because it was unanimously accepted. But had she, I like to think that she would have been pleased. It was given just along with their PX cards and the important things like suntan lotion, believe it or not, to protect them. The soldiers all kept these things inside their helmets. And I remained in contact with people from Delaware Boots on the Ground until it was finally dismantled last year. And I'm told that thousands and thousands and thousands of soldiers were found with this poem inside of their helmet. I wrote it for them, and it was my great honor that it was accepted as a gift. You are the poem. I will wait for you. You are the poem that fills my heart this morning. I sip my coffee, your favorite dark brew, cinnamon scented with vanilla, lots of cream, just the way I always made it for us. I selected your rooster mug with that tiny chip from our shelf of misplaced mugs. You had bent down to place sweet kisses upon my rosy lips when it slipped from my grasp. Do you remember? I keep myself warm, bundled deep within your sweaters, my spirit nourished from the pages of your letters. You are the dream I will awaken from when I feel your own kiss upon my cheek. Come home safe to me.
Wow, Jill, thank you. I always enjoy your readings. So beautiful. Thank you.
Nancy. Thank you.
Anyone else have a poem to read before Susan has something else she was going to read? I guess, Susan, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Let me get this up on my screen. Hold on one second. Okay, so 21 hours ago, in another group that I'm in, a woman asked, she said she has a new job and she wanted to make a statement for this new organization that she's working for. It's a global organization. And she wanted to try to acknowledge this 20th anniversary of the September 11th disaster that happened. And she wanted to acknowledge this moment and try to communicate that we're really trying to, at least in her organization, they're trying to find new pathways into human rights. And not just riding on the notes of war and force. And she especially wanted to highlight, women's rights and voices that are often denied in these discussions. And so she said, given all of that, is there a way, and do you have anything to share that I might be able to, use to influence the statement that I craft in my new job? And of course, all I can share is what I have to share, which is my own experience. And so with the mind of a writer and the heart of a poet, this is what tumbled out. I said to her, I remember falling to my knees in prayer for all the people. It was my first instinct as my body rocked back and forth to try to soothe itself, thinking of the loss of life and all that would ripple out into the world because of it. I remember finally understanding why my mother kept telling the story over and over about remembering where she was when JFK was shot. I remember thinking, aha, now I too have one of those remembering where I was stories. I get it now. I'm sorry. I was so impatient, but I just did not understand. I remember trying to protect my 80-year-old grandmother with dementia from seeing or hearing the news, because like a child, it would be too overwhelming for her. It was an event, the first of several that would follow, that would change the trajectory of my life as those energies rippled out in ways that would continue to be felt by everyone, my friends, my family, my colleagues, and reconfigure everything around it like an invisible energy bomb of fallout and destruction had just washed over everyone and everything, like those videos of the destruction on those early nuclear bomb testing sites, but as with infrared energy, invisible to the naked present eye, only felt like a punch to the gut. Maybe it's another of the hundreds of serendipitous moments I've experienced this last year, but it seems somehow appropriate that my current Airbnb guest of 2 nights just shared with me this article on sacred hospitality as I attempt to be the ambassador of my space, the only space I can be ambassador of, and as I attempt to teach others how to be human ambassadors as well. What mere words can capture this story fully, even after 20 years? Perhaps that is why we remember where we were standing, what we were doing at that moment in time. It's the shortest thread into that space that connects us all.
Wow. Beautiful. Thank you.
Beautiful. Nancy, I did come prepared with another poem, if it's okay.
I believe so. Anyone else before Jill goes again? Are we ready? Go ahead, Jill. Thank you.
Okay. This poem was actually made into a song. I'm going to offer the quote first that inspired this poem by E.M. Forster from Howard's End in oh goodness, I had the date. It was late in the 19th century. So it was late in the 1800s. And if you didn't read the book, but you saw the film, you'll know that the best line, this line, was given to Vanessa Redgrave to speak. My idea has always been that if we could bring the mothers of various nations together, then there would be no more war. My poem is called Let Peace In. When your past is climbing fences just to pound upon your door at 3 a.m., forgive yourself, look ahead, let peace in. When those technicolor dreams douse your heart with hot, splashed pain, show them your clean as morning face. Forgive yourself. Look ahead. Let peace in. When today is screaming, shooting, shouting, far too much for you to bear, forgive yourself. Look ahead. Let peace in. If it's killing you to peer into tomorrow at the sight of dead kids and their clinging ghosts, then drown your pill caches in all of your houses and run fast as the wind. Go now, begin. All is forgiven. Look ahead. Let peace in. Throw your doors open wide. Tear the blinds from your eyes. Look ahead. Look beyond. And please, please, please let peace in. Thank you.
I love what your voice brings to it all. I think that's why I smile. It doesn't matter what you're saying. I just love your voice on all of this. Fantastic work, Jill. Thank you.
You're
Does
welcome.
anyone else have anything else for today? Thank you all for sharing such wonderful memories. Because that's what it is, right? It's all of our memories put into words.
Mhm.
Susan, did you have something else?
I have this short thing. I've read it. I read it for Juneteenth. I think I wrote it for Juneteenth, but I feel like it applies in many situations. And I think as we're thinking about, how do we serve the world better? How do we serve the world going forward, looking forward and creating a better world? I feel like this one might be a good one. And so I wrote this on June 19th. Freedom. We are gone. We are gone from this crush this, got this, nailed it, power up, all in, beat this, win at any cost. We are gone from this crazy dominance worshiping culture that holds us back, holds us down, steps on necks, steals our breath, kills our spirit, saps our soul, sucks our blood. We are gone from this right, wrong, good, bad, hold you back, make you wait, bind your hands, bind your feet, bind your body. We are moving into our minds, our bodies, our art, our choice, our lives, our freedom. We are creating our lives.
Thank you all. Very nice. Okay. Anyone else have anything they'd like to share before we close it up today?
Just one thing. I think
Yes,
this
please.
too shall pass. I mean, it just feels hopeless sometimes, and it's just the news cycles, I guess, we follow. in the middle of a pandemic. But I have to keep telling myself this too shall pass.
That is so true, Rena. Thank you so much for sharing that and for sharing your story. You know, it never dawned on me, all those people on the ground did not know what was happening around them, when all of us knew. That it never dawned on me. So we see, you know, even 20 years later, here I am learning something new about this event that happened that changed us all forever, right? So, okay,
Nancy?
ladies. Yes, ma'am.
While I was listening to Rena tell her story, and unfortunately, I thought it started at 2, so I arrived 2 minutes late, but unfortunately, I missed part of it. You were all speaking and encouraging her to someday write her story. I believe that this might be appropriate, especially for all of us, but most especially, Rena, I've never met you, but I'd like to dedicate this to you. It's about writing, and it may help you, if I may.
Of course. Oh my goodness.
Okay, my name is Jill, by the way.
Yes, I've written it down in my little notepad.
Okay, it's called From the Pen Within. Write from your soul. Write because you don't know how not to. Write to nourish your spirit. Write when you are engulfed with a sadness so deep there are no tears. Write when you soar with unparalleled elation. Write for the freedom it promises you. When writing is the only way to scale the walls of your prison. Write about truths. Pay no attention to rhyme schemes, line breaks, genres, word games, prompts, syllable counts. Write from sun up to sundown and deep into another dark espresso night. Write because you must, when the choice to not write will be the certain death of your spirit. I encourage you to write.
Where can I find this, Jill? Because I want to print it out and post it on my wall.
I'll give you my email.
There you go. I think you should post it in the garden as well. Attach it to this event so everyone can share that. That is pretty powerful stuff, Jill. And I mean pretty by beautiful, powerful stuff.
It is, and it really does reinforce. I was questioning, I had done a debate a long time ago in high school, pen is mightier than the sword.
Yes.
And I was questioning that for the last so many years. I've been questioning, is it really? But I think what you just read out, it is. It is. I should make it.
Absolutely. And we will be here to support you through that. I want to hear the story for sure.
Absolutely. And your publisher's right here, Lisa. She's mine.
Okay.
There you go. Okay, I am going to stop the recording now, I believe.